So, guys, we've been talking about data, and we've been talking a lot about the models. And just to warm up and to open up the discussion, I would like to ask you, what's the king here? The data or the model, the modeling? Because, you know, we keep hearing and we are saying that data is a new resource. It's like a gold, it's like a new currency, it's an oil. So there, you know, if the data is oil, so then, you know, modeling is the engine. How does it work? And of course, we have to have the data as the starting point. This is a crucial point. And we were talking about the quality of data as well. So we have data analysis, data management. But then we have to have the models, which has to be true, and of course, we have to be good as well. But we have to make the use of data. That's the crucial thing. So who would like to start first? Maybe Vladimir, because you have some limits and you have the micro. So how to make use of data?
So, let me put a bit what you said, what is more important, data or model? I would say both, but there is difference between data and model or algorithms. The difference is algorithms right now is not gold because it's available, it's open source. Everything what I shown you can download after these meetings and you can run. This is not a big deal. So this is available. We don't need buy it. But on the other hand, data is very limited. And for example, it's really hard to buy data. And right now it's quite a big problem to find really good data set. And this is why companies should collect. And this is what Filip said. It's really very good point, and I agree with this, that data quality right now is a really big problem. We try to collect data because big data is trend, but we, like a company, don't pay a lot of attention about quality. But this is really crucial, quality of data.
Yeah, my answer will be quite different. The most important is the business problem. The most important is to understand the business model, to understand the process. And sometimes you have very good enough, maybe very small predictive power of accuracy in the model, and you can earn a lot of money. You have very good process. And sometimes to manage your process in correct way, you need a very good accuracy. It depends on the business. It depends on the field. It depends on the business understanding of the process. Data quality, yes, it's a very nice explanation why it was not possible to build a good model. But data quality is always because or due to not understanding the business needs, not understanding the process, and due to the fact that sometimes one person defines the way of the data collection and another person's in quite different time collect the data and try to build model. So this is the reason why we have sometimes problems with data quality. Because we have two times. In one time we define the structure and what kind of data we would like to collect. And in other way, the usage of data. Because we use data not in the same way as we design the process. This is a problem. And so that problem will be always. So I'm not afraid of the data quality, because even you have sometimes very bad data quality, you can always improve the business process.
Filip?
So I think that I've already answered during my presentation. I strongly believe that the data is the most important part. And even gathering the data that you think that is garbage one day might be very important in a few years. And to train anything and to have some reasonable accuracy, you have to have history of the data. So we have a projects where we gather competitors' data for our customers. We gather data of their websites, and on a daily basis we know how their competitors behave, and even though we have just few months, in 2 years, this is going to be an important factor. And their competitors are not gathering the data, so they have an edge. And keeping an edge is very important, I believe. And regarding the models, people that think that the models are the problem are probably already there, so they know what they are doing. So for most companies, I think that I do agree that business changing the mindset might be the most important thing, because regarding the models, it's a matter of maybe a few percents of better accuracy. So if you have no model, it's definitely worse than having a model that's maybe 2% below the state-of-the-art one.
I would like to add something. Of course.
Some processes are unpredictable from the definition. You don't need the data because you cannot find the data, proper data to predict unpredictable process.
Okay, so you touched a very interesting issue. Just wanted to add something on that, because just let me stick on this data issue. So nowadays we produce really just huge tons of huge amounts of data, so like exabytes and so on. But basically this is, on one hand, this is the issue with the number or with the amount of data, but on the other hand, there is an issue with new data feeds, new data sources, new data types. Apart from the text, of course, we can add video, we can add localizations. There were some examples you were giving us. So there are also multiple diverse sources of data. And I'm aware of the situation, for example, from one of the bank, when they started the data analytics and data management projects. So basically, they couldn't even find some of the data they needed. And that's one of the example. And also on the other hand, they weren't aware of the data they are just simply having. So there are some hidden data, and there are some data that you can't find and you can't have because you can't predict. This is what you were saying, Karol. So just keeping that in mind, how do you think we can add some value? How we can improve that? I mean, data management and data analytics, and just coping with these amounts and different sources of data. Who would like to start first, because we don't have to go in the row?
Can I answer
in
the opposite thinking?
That's a question.
Yes, I understand. Let's consider a very simple case. In our data, we create, for example, a simple frequency table, and we see that the product X is the most frequently. What does it mean? It means that our customers like that product, they prefer that product, or it means that the process of selling is focused on the product X, and the seller is persuaded, or the customer is persuaded to buy that product. Where is the answer? We have the same data, but quite different interpretations. So it isn't a problem with data, it is the problem of the understanding the process. Sometimes you don't need more data, sometimes you need to change the process.
Of course, but still you have like a multiple sources, you have like a multitude of the information, so basically not even the information but the data from which you have to make the information, so you have to make the use. Of course the process is a part of it, but then we still have a challenge with data. So what do you think, Vladimir, about that?
I think this example is quite interesting as well. I think it's a bit related again with data quality as well. Not always it's about metric and about understanding the process, but on the other hand, a bit overlap with data quality, how we collect data, what type data we collect. For example, we can collect much more data about behavior of this user in some way and so on. But this is, I'm not saying that it's only data quality, but it's a bit overlap as well. But your question more about how to manage with all of these challenges which we have in terms of sources, in terms of unstructured data, because this is what we have. We have unstructured data, and most of data, what you mentioned, zettabytes or even more, or a bit less maybe. But all those data like movies or even Excel files sometimes, if you have a lot of files in your computer and let's say you can download all this data, you don't have any structure. And the question is how to get value from this. This is a bit tricky question, and I don't want to talk right now about technical stuff, but let's say if we understood what we want to achieve, we will have this metric, we want better understood how to collect data. But on the other hand, there is good rules. If you have collect data, usually you won't collect it. And get everything what you can and put in some general structure, and later you can extract some value from this. Even if you cannot extract value now, you can extract this value, let's say, tomorrow in closed circles.
Yeah. So I have two points that I want to add. One is the data lake that I mentioned. So many enterprise now dump all they have to a huge data lake. Sometimes it's usable, sometimes it's not. It's mostly a huge HDFS, so a Hadoop cluster where you have everything you get. There are some other concerns, so security and who can get an access to the data and stuff like that. But this is the problem, that the data is unstructured and it's hard to process the data, but it's doable, so it's better than not keeping the data anyway. And the second part of the question is how to spread the knowledge of what you have. And this is not only a problem of data, but models as well. And I think that the one thing that we can look at to inspire ourselves is to look at the companies that are pretty successful in their data science work. So one example could be Airbnb. So Airbnb had a data scientist as an employee number 7. So they've grown up with that data science in their core as one of the values, and they have various different ways. So they have their knowledge, like internal website where they share their experiments. You can search the thing. You can access a description of each data set in the organization. So giving that kind of tool to your team, if it's very large, and if we speak about huge banks, these teams are large, so it's just making easier for people to discover stuff. And another thing that Airbnb does are internal tech talks. So they just spread the word of the cool stuff they've built, and they also have a boot camp. So when you get hired at Airbnb, you go for a week where you learn about different models that they use, their data sets. And I think that this is also something that even for high-tech companies could be improved. So experience of my friends is that even when you work for, and you can place some cool high-tech company here, you can arrive at the very first day and not even get your laptop. So the gap here is huge. And if you make it easier for people to discover stuff and learn about stuff, they are going to use that knowledge. If different teams within the organization don't know each other at all, the probability that they are going to mention that data set they collected and cleaned up, that is already clean and ready to use, I think that this probability is pretty low.
Yeah, but the issue of learning or knowledge management, knowledge sharing in the organization, it's not only related to data management, or
Yeah.
it's also for other, just
yeah.
processes, procedures.
I
Piotr, you
have
would
a
like to
question,
add
if I may
something?
ask.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask a question, since we're speaking about big data in terms of business. Filip, during your presentation you mentioned that deep learning is costly. As I understand, at least two of you mostly work for large companies. You, Vladimir, working for GE, You've worked with a number of Fortune 500 companies. The question is big data a competitive advantage that is it as advantageous for large companies to use big data rather than for small ones?
Maybe I first, really quick now. It is, as for everyone. I mean, if you get a good accuracy, you're ahead. And the truth is, it's easier for startups because they move faster. But if you can get the same speed as a startup or even close to that within a big organization, you're ahead. Or you can buy a startup that already implemented that. And this is a fairly good strategy for many organizations. It's easier to just buy innovation than create it within a slower organism. Yeah.
Yeah, of course it is a fact that if you have better data, if you have better quality, you always can be better. So many companies win because they have a better data, because they found the way how to get better data, how to collect data, etc. Of course it's a fact. But on the other hand, sometimes the problem is in the process, to change the process, to collect the data, to find the data. Let's imagine a very simple case in the consumer cash loan. At the beginning, when we have a new customer, sometimes we don't have any data about that customer. And we can say, what we can do? We are not able to predict his risk. So what we can do? And of course, you can try to find from one place, another place, etc. But you can define very simple process. So let's start with a very small cash loan at the beginning. And day by day, month by month, you collect enough data about the customer. So in some time, that customer has enough data to predict his predictive of the risk in the correct way, and you can give him enough money, huge money in the future. So it is a problem of process, not of the data.
When we talk, when we should make choice between small and big data, I prefer to use terminology smart data. And smart data, it's not about amount, it's more about what you have inside. Because in the end of the day, you can start generate random data, you will achieve big data, you will have a lot of volume, but not use it exactly. So this is more about smart. And about deep learning, I want to comment. So this is really true, this is expensive, because for two reasons. You need more expensive hardware and you need more expensive, more qualified people. But I'm shown in my example from PayPal, they save 2+ billion because they use deep learning. And the question is it useful? I think yes. So this is trade-off between effort and impact.
Yeah, I like, just smart. So you said smart data, yeah. So I just want to talk about the smart predictive analysis, because we touched this as well. So every business wants to predict the future and how customer behaves. So basically, just to assure the stable revenue stream, and if the customer will just make another transactions on the next transactions, and when, and of course how much he or she will pay. And in case of credit scoring, so credit risk or credit analysis, so of course, or fraud monitoring, it's quite negative. So when the customer will default or will not pay in time. So basically, in your opinion, guys, what we can do better about predictive analysis? And the second thing is, what are the limitations of predictive analysis?
From my knowledge about, especially if we talk about fin industry, there are still a lot of linear models, and for a few reasons. One is because we know what we are doing, and this is much simpler. It's kind of comfortable zone. We can sit in this zone as long as possible. Second reason is interpretability. We can explain why it works or doesn't work. And last reason is really, really cheap. And again, in terms of people, hardware, and so on. But on the other hand, if, let's say, a new bank will try use more advanced model and will deliver a better result, that means that this bank will be more competitive. This is why fintech burn, because somebody else start to use something, some other tools, some methodology, which before big bank don't use it. And sometimes a small company like startup can deliver a better result because they use much more advanced model. But with what I'm shown on my presentation, advanced model is usually black box, and this is the biggest issue what I heard from different people. I cannot use it. It is better, but I cannot. And reasons low and few other, but low is the most important. And this is what I'm showing, that right now there are some initiative how to use more advanced model. Of course it makes sense because what mentioned before, sometimes you don't need advanced model. Sometimes linear model is enough. I don't talk about this case. I'm talking about case when you have more advanced relations and you can predict much more, but you need more advanced tool, more capable tool, like plane instead of car. And how to manage the risk. And this is what I'm trying to show, that right now there are some initiatives how to try explain black box. And this is works from other side. We don't try analyze why it works. We try to observe symptoms. If this client has this value, and that value, this impact on that result.
Yeah, there's no limitation in my opinion. So this is the process, we cannot stop it. We can only decide to participate in it. So I suppose, and I can predict the future, that in every company we will have many models, we will have many analytics, and we cannot stop it. We cannot stop it. But on the other hand, I'm afraid it is danger sometimes, not why but what. And I always repeat to my students, be careful with that sentence, because black box sometimes isn't simple model, isn't useful model, because you don't understand what is inside. And in my opinion, we always need to understand what is going on inside. Because if we don't know what is inside, sometimes we make a wrong decision.
Yeah, but sometimes it doesn't matter. Like, if you have a fraud detection system and it gives you tons of money, you don't care if you make several wrong decisions. So
it doesn't matter.
I like the tension.
Don't
here
use model.
between,
it doesn't matter. Don't use any model.
I mean, it doesn't matter that you cannot understand it, not that you use a model. I mean, there are cases where all you care is accuracy, and if you get more money with black box, then you can. And there are no regulations that force you not to use it. Then why not? One thing that, like, I agree that there are no any tough limitations where we can go. It's very exciting to live nowadays and explore what's going to happen within several years. I think that thinking only about Poland or Europe is quite limiting. The game is going to be global, and this is the right mindset. Data is crucial. So regarding the last point that I want to slightly disagree is that if you like gathering the data by giving a small loan might be a good way, but this is also a business decision, as you've mentioned, because if you have a competition that will deliver better model faster and would be able to give a higher loan before you might lose a client and the data as well. So there are some pros and cons always, and I think that the only way is actually to make that decision and check.
So just looking from the predictive analysis perspective, we can't predict everything and we can't predict the future.
Especially the future.
Yeah, especially so only only with limited time, and so basically we can do everything. So just trying to sum up, because we are just slowly coming to the end. So guys, just having said that about the future, I would like to ask you about the future. So we are focusing tonight on credit scoring, but even, just Filip mentioned fraud detection, fraud monitoring. So we have like different areas when data management, modeling, and of course deep learning can be applied. If you can just share with us some ideas of the areas of the industries like fraud detection, like insurance, that these tools and these analytics can be applied, and what you predict for the nearest future, just to sum up. Maybe I will, yeah.
I can start from other side. There is kind of competition in some small groups when people think what type industry will not use machine learning in next 5 years. And usually it's really hard to find, because almost everywhere, everything you can optimize. And this is why actually Google said we are AI first strategy. We decide to be AI first. A few months later, in August, Microsoft said the same. So everywhere we have this AI first. And this is trying to say on general level that machine learning probably will be almost everywhere. This is good and bad. I will not discuss about this, but I'm just saying that it will be. In finance, in this fin industry, I think first, if we think about, because how it works, we want to optimize in terms of money, right? So we should think where we spend a lot of money and what we can automate. And usually this is kind of process related with human. Right now people do a lot of things manually, and we can automate it. This is a bit related with RPA, robotic process automations. And next one. So we will automate everything. Instead of hiring 1,000 people, we will have, let's say, few, just to check what robots do. And finally, probably even less. And I don't say this is good or bad, I'm just saying how it will be. We will have more chatbots, and this is good from client point of view, because client can talk in chatbot all time, at night, for example, why not? And it will be more individual approach. Next thing about recommendation products, this is what is going even now, that this is actually a good example what is shown in your presentation. Instead of send everybody and waste money, time, and so on, you will send only the people which really want. Maybe they don't know that they want, but when they will see, okay, probably I want it, and I will buy it. So those areas will be improved as well. So maybe next one.
As I mentioned before, we cannot stop that process. On the other hand, we should understand that the market is changing, and the market is changing more and more quicker. So I can imagine that in the future, the expert knowledge will be not possible, because the yesterday data will be quite different than today data, and your expert knowledge always should be updated, and very carefully updated. So it is possible in the future that if you make analysis, you will see always new data. You will not be able to find some properties from the historical data, because it will be quite new, quite fresh data. Can you imagine it? It is possible, because the market can change more quicker than we can see and we can expect.
But what do you mean by expert knowledge?
For example, sometimes we know that, for example, old people rather has a low risk, credit risk, than young people. It is expert knowledge. You can implement that rule in the scoring engine, and you will always win. But in the future, I'm not sure. Maybe there will be opposite case.
It's a tough question. trying to predict the future. I'm much more optimistic about advancements in AI than Vladimir. I think it's gonna take a while, and as a civilization, we tend to go really high about several topics, and we've already done it with AI as well. Machine learning is going to thrive in many ways, but it's going to produce new jobs as well. This is my expectation. So I think that my parents wouldn't predict that we would have user experience specialists and people on with those titles in current companies. So the same is going to happen with those changes. So we are going to meet new challenges and think about new ways to how to solve them. So this for sure, I think that we are not going to end up worthless with AI controlling everything. Regarding the ways that models are going to be used, maybe we, and this is only a hypothesis as well, maybe companies are going to actually exchange their data in some ways, but this might be blocked by regulations because I believe that data from even from Google or from Facebook could be very, very powerful to telecoms and to banks and finance institutions as well. But maybe, hopefully, but it's hard to judge. It's also a moral dilemma.
Of course it's hard, otherwise I wouldn't ask you. But anyways, that's an interesting story because we just made a journey from credit scoring. We arrived at general AI application in chatbots and different areas, not only financial ones, because it can be, okay, insurance, it's still finance, but it can be retail, it can be airlines, it can be transport or public transportation, everything, almost. So I think we can just close our panel and we can still take some questions from the audience. So Vladimir, thank you very much, and you are free to leave because you have to, I think. Okay with you? Okay, thank you very much. And of course, you know, Karol and Filip, thank you very much for being here and for discussing. Yeah.
It's not the end yet. It's not the end, so please don't stand up.
You know,
We have the situation sometimes that people just stand up and leave.
But I think, you know, just we can take some questions from the audience. So if you have any, don't hesitate to ask the questions to our special panelists and guests.
Maybe about changes, you said the changes are very frequent and fast. How frequent, how fast? Every year or every 3 years?
Difficult to measure it. It's a very open question.
What
you
history
made.
says until now?
I mean that the historical data will not give you enough information how to predict or how to manage the future. This is my answer. That the market will change too quicker to predict the future.
If you want to add something.
So for several models that we built, we had that situation where the model with shorter history had better accuracy. So for example, for some, let's say, retail industry, we rather train a model giving just 2 years of history data than 4 years of history data, because you have some trends in data that are actually, you know, playing against you and are old and people do not behave in the same way, or the how do you call it? When you have the loyalty card, so the company implemented the card 2 years ago and that changed behavior of your clients completely. So this is again domain knowledge, and if you have people on your side that are capable of building data science model and have domain knowledge, this is priceless.
Okay, one more question.
Even two from myself. Are there any companies that use credit scoring based on AI, solely on AI? Are you aware of that?
Of course.
And how do they do with it? And the other one, are there any off-the-shelf products?
One question at a time. I think that'd be too many.
Artificial intelligence.
Any company that uses artificial intelligence for credit scoring.
I mean solely.
So the techniques of the artificial intelligence, what are you talking about?
We cannot answer this question without defining artificial intelligence.
I mean, scoring models based on AI, big data. I mean,
So
Facebook,
without human
interaction.
interaction
In
any way.
automatic
Yes.
process.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, automatic process is rather present in many companies, always in banks, always in many other, in debt collection, for example, processes, in many others, in retail processes, in CRM processes. You have many automatic processes when some scoring is calculated and the decision is made. So it is fact deep.
I can agree. I cannot mention like our clients that use automated ways, but there are companies that use automated methods. There are still some people involved on edge cases, but if you have 99 probability of being accurate, then you just take the 1% risk.